Good morning to everybody. Blessings on your life. It's another day that the Lord has made. I want you to forgive me for my attire today. I am being lazy and I don't feel like putting clothes on. But the Word of God is not about your attire and how you look. Um, the Word of God is powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword. And so we're going to present it just the way it is because it goes beyond what I'm wearing. I want to engage your attention and our thoughts on this morning into a new horizon, if you will, that God has given me and laying upon my heart to deal with. And I had a vision, and in my vision, what I saw was a I saw a place out on the horizon, and it reminded me of like a superstore, like a new filling station that was being built. And within that station, you could come up and you could get this, that, and the other necessities, right, for life. And it was an in and out type store. Um, but the thing that really captured me and I focused on was it did not say Sunoco or Chevron or BP. It didn't say none of that. It said healing station. That was um, the sign that you could see from a distance. And so we would kind of call that off the highway, if you will. And it really grabbed me. And the Lord began to minister to me about that. And I said, God, where are we going here? And he said, Donnie, he says, one of the biggest things that is needed uh, to empower the body of Christ and to administer the things that are needed in the world today is he says that my people need to be healed, healed, to be healed. And he took that further, but for the sake of brevity and to initiate a conversation of understanding, of information, and a thought today, I'm going to deal with the healing aspect of it because there's a wholeness aspect to it as well. And so today, I want to talk to you about the healer in you, the healer in you. And so I'm going to start a series, as it were, about how you are so full of healing and so full of God, yet you have not activated, nor do you fully understand it, nor do you know that you have it. It is the healer now that is inside of you. And so as God was giving this to me, he took me back to a place and I have to concretize my position today because what happened to me yesterday was for such a time as this, for such a time as today. And so now as you look at me today, I understand that I look like one person. I get that. I look like one person. But the truth of the matter is, and the truth of the matter is with all of us, is that there are more than one of us at any given time that you are looking at. The question now is which one has the attention, which one has the authority, which one has been given the right of way uh, for the task. And so, in order for us to understand that, and what God was saying to me was that I have to take you back to a time. And so, as you look at me today, you are actually looking at two people. So there is Donnie the person, and then there is Donnie the forerunner. There is a person that is inside of me that has prepared me for a journey. There's a person that's has prepared me for a journey. Oftentimes, that person has not had quite the experience that you would have wanted them to have. The Bible says that Jesus, before he came, that there was a person by the name of John, John the Baptist. And John the Baptist was what we call a forerunner A forerunner is somebody that prepares the way. I want y'all to hear me on today. A forerunner is someone that prepares the way. It is important now that we understand the preparation and the path that is being made, because there are so many people and so many things that is going to travel this pathway or this road. And if the road is not prepared um, just right, if the road is not prepared perfectly, then there is going to be some mishaps on the road, because there is this need of preparation. When I was a little boy, I suffered with a lot of things. I suffered with a lot of things. The person that you see me as now is not the person that prepared the way for me. I'm going somewhere. So when I was a little boy, I always had conditions. And as a kid that was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, as far as I can go back, I was always struggling with something that was happening on the inside of me. I'll never forget that uh, there was at one point in my life where I struggled with what was called eczema. Eczema. I want y'all to hear me, because I'm laying the foundation, I'm laying the road, I'm laying the layers now that is empowering me and giving me the wherewithal to come to you today and to bring this message, but also to bring the ministry. So, as a little boy, I would always relish. I would relish in what I would see around me, because the people that I would see around me, they were so beautiful. They looked so good. When you have a defect, you can always see what what looks perfect. And so in my defect, I had a skin disease that was of the worst kind. And I'll never forget that as I was going through this process, my sister, which is now passed on to glory, and as brothers and sisters, we say mean things to one another. My sister said to me, she says, "Boy, you look like a monster. You're like a monster." I went through a period of time, and I often wondered why I had to spend so much time there. I spent um, probably 2/3 of my adolescence, my young life, and even as a young adult, I was still basking in this area, and I stayed in this place of eczema. Now, I've talked to you all about um, Exodus 12, where it says that Moses told them to get a lamb according to their father's house. Everybody has a lamb now that is fit for who you are and where you come from, for your situation. I also said in that delivery that my mother, on her side of the family, the one of the defects, one of the soul ties, one of the demonic nuisances of that side of the family was autoimmune deficiencies. And autoimmune deficiency is something now that comes to the body to for the body to attack itself. When it attacks itself, it can come out in a myriad of forms. I told you that my mother had TTP, which was a form of leukemia. My sister, she had fibromyalgia. I actually ended up having a multiple autoimmune deficiencies, and I always wondered. I felt like I was being picked on. And as I was going through this, um, I would look at people that did not have the appearance of issues or trouble in their life, and so the eczema was an autoimmune deficiency that was given to me that had an outer appearance of bad skin texture. You would almost look like you had alligator skin. Um, it's a horrible skin disease. It's in the family of psoriasis and all that stuff. Those are all autoimmune deficiencies of some sort, of some kind. As I was going through this, the majority of my childhood, there was a doctor that was prolific in the administration of healing. It was not, I'm not going to say that it wasn't the administration of healing, because healing didn't take place, but to subside. He was an expert in getting the disease to respond to FDA approved medication or processes that could help you in your condition. And so I'll never forget that, although I came from a family that was middle class, but my mother or my father did not know how to address certain issues, nor did they pay it attention enough, go deep enough with it to get me the help that I needed. Now, they don't get me wrong. I went to the doctor. They found the doctor's name was Dr. Brody. He's gone on now, but Dr. Brody became my friend. However, the administration of medication that he gave to me had a long-term effect that was extremely negative to my wellness. And so I'll never forget, long story short, mom and dad, they saw my condition and they wished me well, but they were not attentive as probably one would want. And that became problematic. And as a little boy, it rested inside of me. I thought that to be weird. I went through lonely pockets of my life where I felt that my parents did not care. I also, as a result of this autoimmune deficiency, I had emotional places that I would dance with, and there was times when I entertained the idea of suicide. I'm going somewhere. I don't want to help somebody today because we got to get to this place called healing. And I'll never forget going to Dr. Brody. I'm still at step number one because I had a lot of conditions. I'll never forget as I would get to know Dr. Brody, his staff. I still remember all of his staff. They would remember me. We was first name basis because I had to go there weekly in order to keep this disease at bay. I had it during that time of the worst kind. I had it all on my legs. I had it on my belly. I had it on my face was the worst. And I got to the point where I would go to the doctor because the doctor's office was not too far from us. And either I had to walk to the doctor's office or I would ride my bike to the doctor's office. I was having a conversation with a person the other day about how my experiences were as a child. I'm missing two teeth. One of them I just got a bridge on. But I remember as a child, I would walk to the dentist's office, and the dentist's office was a couple miles from the house because they just don't, we ain't built that way no more. But back then, not to minimize my mother and my father, but I did some things that was just kind of odd. And as you get older, you discover the reason why you went down certain pathways. And I'll never forget, I went to Dr. Childress, that was his name, and he was a dentist. He was a black man. He had real big hands, so he looked like they was big hands to me at that time because I was a kid, and I had two cavities. And for me, where they could have saved my teeth, but my mother and father. This is another thing, which is my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. They were not engaged enough. They didn't know the right questions to ask. And so if the dentist said that you have a cavity, what they would do is pull a tooth. And so I got two missing teeth right now because of I didn't get the proper care. I got a resolve, but it wasn't the proper care. Anyway, I'll never forget. I would either walk to Dr. Brody's office, which was a dermatologist, or I would ride my bike up there, and he would give me prednisone, which is a known fact now of how deadly that can be long term. And so I was taking prednisone as a little boy weekly. Prednisone is a steroid. And then they would give me a hydrocortisone, a steroid cream. That was the percentage was the highest percentage that you could get. This was to put on my body in different areas, and predominantly my face. And so I used this, and I did this for years. I started having this problem when I was probably I noticed it when I was probably about 6 years of age. And so they would give me that. And then the last thing that they would give me is they would put me under a body light. It was an infrared light system, but this system would shoot out these UV rays that would do something to the skin so the skin could start to heal from the inside out, or however that whole thing works. To this day, if you look at me, I still have the signs. I still have the markings of what happened to me from my past. I'm trying to go somewhere. I need y'all to stay with me. I still have the markings. And so my body does not look like a normal person's body because of what it went through, what it went through. But I went through it not just for me. I went through it for such a time as this. I went through it for you. So when you look at me now, as beautiful as I am, I have different colors everywhere. I have different colors, and the reason why I have different colors is because in order to bring about a temporary remedy for me, they had to in, put this stuff be on me that was so intense that it gave me a long-term problem. It was a long-term defect. And so sometimes I remember I would be working in different places, and I had this one lady ask me one time. She said, did you, because she knew I went to the service, I was in the service. She says, did you get affected by Agent Orange? And I said, no, I didn't get affected by Agent Orange, but I had a childhood problem that was very problematic. And so if you look at me today, my neck is a very light color right here. It gets a little darker on my chest area. And then the rest of my body starts to mellow out. My regular color, I took more of my color after my mother than I did my father. You don't always see that because of the intensity of the um, um, medication that I was on. And so my face, because they had to put this light in it, and it was really hot, and it engaged my face um, with intensity. And so my face got darkened, and what it did, it went in so deep that I later found out that the regular layers to my skin underneath, they had permanent damage. And so in the permanent damage, it left areas of my face very dark, very dark. Now, sometimes it'll lighten up, but my skin color, my natural skin color is more like down here. That's my natural skin color. That's from here down. I'm more of a caramel person than a mocha person, but it goes from a caramel to a mocha. And then sometimes, depending on what's going on with the sun and me and where I'm at and this, that, and the other, they'll change. Your skin, you naturally change, especially people that's of color. Black people, they shift and they change. And so this whole thing, to make short of a long story, it did a lot to me. It did a lot to me. When I was in the seventh grade, I started to come in an awareness of myself. And at that point, I wanted to look good. From the sixth grade to the first grade, I really didn't care. People saw what they saw, but all I was concerned about was playing football, playing basketball, riding my bike, and stuff like that. When I got in the seventh grade, I started to be concerned about how I looked. And so I'll never forget that, in fact, it affected my grades when I was a kid all through elementary school. I was on the honor roll. And my first year of junior high school, and at that time, junior high was seventh, eighth, and ninth grade, and they changed it. But in my seventh grade, I had honor roll halfway through the year. And then the disease, it escalated to the point to where I just couldn't deal with it. And so I'll never forget my English teacher. His name was Mr. Livingston. And Mr. Livingston was a kind man, white man. And he was the only one that was concerned about my concerns at the time. I don't remember my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister. I remember my siblings being mean to me. That's what I remember, and saying very mean things. When I went to school and I had English first period, and when I would get there, I would do my work, but I would do my work with my head down because I had eczema so bad around my mouth, my neck, my face, around my eyes. My eyes was real. It was just horrible all over my face. And as my sister said, you look like a monster. I did look like a monster. I had scales. It was actually scaly. It was scaly. It was watery. It was pussy. It was just really bad. And even during that time, I had to go to school. I couldn't stop school. I didn't want to go because I didn't want nobody to see me like that. And it was very difficult as a kid. And so I became a loner. I started to just push back from people. I didn't want people to see me, and I didn't want to be around people. And so when it came to I remember going out to play football. I didn't want to go play football because the sun and all that stuff, it just made everything worse. And then I just looked so bad before people playing basketball, this, that, and the other. So all the extracurricular activities, I I um, I refrained from that for a period of time until I could get this thing under control. But it made things very difficult and very challenging for me. And I'll never forget. I had one guy, one of my friends. His name was Boyd Flemings. Boyd Flemings. He's dead now, but he was my best friend in the seventh grade. And Boyd had a heart problem, and his heart problem was so bad that if you would hit him in his chest, it could cause him to go into uh, cardio arrest. But Boyd and I, because at that time we had to walk back and forth to school, I had a condition and he had a condition, and so we could identify one another. And Boyd became my friend, and so we would talk. Boyd never looked at my skin. He had beautiful skin, but he had a problem. He had a heart problem. But he only saw me as I was. He saw the person, the inner me, and he never looked at me. I could tell that when we would engage in conversation, that he was not there looking and examining me like my sister would, or maybe my brother would, and maybe other friends and stuff that was around me, and they would say mean things. He didn't do that, and so it was the only person that I had to confide in that brought comfort in a way that made me feel like I was normal. Okay, like I was normal. I'm saying all this because I'm trying to paint something to get us to where we are now, and how there's a need for a forerunner to prepare a place for a place that you're going to go to. Nobody knows all the things that happened to me during that season, how the emotional distress and the trauma that I went through during that season with myself, with my family, with friends, and all that stuff. Nobody knew about all that. Let's move. Let's take it to a higher rung. Let's go to the next step. Dealing with that issue was one, so it was like compound interest. And then as I got older, I noticed that there were other things that was wrong with me, and I talked about this a little bit. And so as I got older in my 20s, I had this problem that it tailed along with me. But then I developed what was called hypertension. This is what they call it, right? A lot of y'all know about hypertension. So I developed hypertension, and I developed hypertension when I was a young adult of the worst kind. I went to a doctor in Mansfield. His name was Dr. Padaval, and he's uh, I don't even know if Dr. Padaval is still living or not, but he was pronounced in the African American community. He was an Indian man, and Dr. Padaval, he subscribed to me several different types of blood pressure medication, and the one that stands out was he subscribed to me to Norman, and to Norman was given to me by him, but he gave it to me at the highest dosage plus. He says you need to take more of this. And so I remember as I was trying to navigate, there was sometimes that I had to be hospitalized and stuff like that. And I was married at the time. I had children at the time, but I was living in a fog. I was living in a fog because it was part of me that I felt like I wasn't going to live long. Inside of my body, I was wrestling with my body, but yet I was trying to act normal. I was trying to act normal. I was trying to be normal. I was still trying to be a husband and still trying to be a father and still trying to participate in certain things. But I knew inside of me something wasn't right. And so was my blood pressure, amongst other things that it was doing that was just causing my body to be really, really weird, really, really weird. And so I remember at one point because I got saved when I was 23. When I was 23 years old, I got saved. I wasn't a strong Christian, but I did get saved. And I was on this medication. I'm saying that because God said something to me during this period. It was a few years later as I had grown in the Lord a little bit, and He spoke to me, and He says to me, I'll never forget. I was upstairs. I lived at 125 Roland Avenue, and I was upstairs in the room. And as you go up the steps, it's the first room to the left, and the bed was facing. As you walk into the room, it was the backside. I can see it just like I'm looking at you right now. It was the backside of the wall, and I had all these pills beside the bed, and I was just taking these pills. I was becoming a junkie, right? So I'm taking this for heart. I'm taking this for high blood pressure. They all like one are the same, one it'll just act a little bit differently than the other pill. And so I heard like I'm listening to any voice. I heard a voice say, get rid of the pills, don't take another pill, and that you are healed, that you are healed. And so I think I told my wife at the time, I think I told her that what the Lord had said, and I said that I'm healed. And so she listened to me because she believed what I told her. She believed God. And I took the pills, all the bottles, and I went to the bathroom, which was down the hall, just a few steps. And I went to the toilet and I poured them all in the toilet. Poured them in the toilet. I went back to the doctor and I told the doctor, I said that he asked me how was I doing, took my blood pressure, how was I feeling, this, that, and the other. And I told him, I said, I was healed. I said, God healed me. At this time, I'm going to church and, really getting into church and this, that, and the other, and just trying to do this thing right. At that time, the family was wholesome at that time. And so he said to me, he says, whatever you do, he says, don't stop taking those pills. He says, because if you do, you will die. That's what he told me. He said, basically, the pills were keeping me alive. And he says, if you stop taking those pills, you're going to die. And so I had to juxtapose what he said versus what God said. Goes back to Isaiah 53. And so I heard what he said. I left the doctor's office and I went home and he gave me another prescription. I never got the prescription filled and I never took another one of those pills. Later on in life, a few years later, I started to get out of touch. I started feeling better because the Lord, sometimes he can heal you and he'll say, go and sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you. So at that time, that word was not concretized in my spirit. And I started to get into things that would not be good, unbecoming of a Christian. And I'll never forget that one day I was going to work, and when I get to work, I got my assignment. And as I go to my assignment, I passed out. When I passed out, I basically woke up, and when I really gained my faculties, I was at the hospital in the emergency room, and they were getting ready to take me from the emergency room up to the intensive care, and they were rolling me. I remember the nurse, two of them, actually it was more that was around me. It was all these white coats, and I was on the stretcher thing, the gurney, whatever you call it. I was on that, and we were getting ready to go into an elevator, and in the elevator, the nurse, which was a guy nurse, and he said to me, he says, young man, he said, you've had a heart attack. You've had a heart attack. And I said, what, a heart attack? I said, how in the world could I have had a heart attack at my age? And he said that it's becoming more and more pronounced with young people having heart attacks now. I'm gonna cut this short because I'm gonna add to it. I got to get to my message. My grandmother came to the hospital to see me, and when she came to the hospital to see me, my grandmother, she was fortified with the Spirit of God. She was a powerful woman of God, and she walked past the nursing station and all that that was there up in intensive care. She walked past all that, and she said to me, she says, you didn't have a heart attack, and you're not gonna die. Truth of the matter is, I did have a heart attack, but I did not die, because what happened was that she demonstrated something inside of her that she was carrying, but I did not understand it. I'm not even sure if she totally understood it at the time, but she had a gift of healing. She was a prophet in her own right, and she could speak things. She could tell you something, and you could count on it happening. I saw my grandmother speak over many people's lives, and she healed them. And their lives were changed as a result of her relationship with God. And so I had that happen to me. Not only did I have it happen to me once, I had it happen to me twice. Then I developed this thing called MS. Okay, and MS, it is a disease. This was later on. I'm just trying to fast forward this because there's been so many things that has happened to me, um, from kidney problems to prostate problems to multiple sclerosis. Um, to skin conditions, to feet conditions, to you name it. I felt as if I was just had the worst of everything. And when you look at my medical record is this thick. And at the end of the day, what the doctors will say is that you are living in an unlivable body, right? And so I'll say this part, and then I'll move into where I really want to get to today. And I've already extended my time. Y'all know that I've been going to this chiropractor, which is a holistic doctor, and that's a whole nother story because I'm dealing with this now from a very spiritual place, a godly place, a Jesus place, and I'm trying to, and I'm getting ready to do some things with this doctor that she's not even aware of, but God has His eyes on her. Anyway, she said something to me, and it resonated with me. And because we didn't have enough time to talk about it, I didn't, and I'm gonna save it for another day. But she said something that I took with me out the door. And she says, I've worked on a lot of people with MS, and she says you have a mild condition of MS compared to what I've seen. And I said, okay, oh really? Now, what she did not know was that my condition has been healed to where I am now. My condition has evolved to where I am now. That is something that she could not see, and something that she could not perform through a holistic approach, through a chiropractic approach. I'm going to her for, just mild things to learn a little bit more about my body in order to take care of me a little bit better. But it was the thing that got to me was she said that, you have a mild condition. And I said to myself as I went going out the door, I said, no, I have a healed condition. I have a healed condition. Now, the reports show that my condition is this way and that way. And every time I go get an MRI, there's no improvement. I still have tracts throughout my brain, white matter throughout my brain. I still have the sheathing that has been removed from my spine at the base of my neck, and all this where MS attacks the nervous system, which controls the muscular system and how you get twisted up and all this, that, and the other. The issue is now is that God has me at a place of stability. This has now become my healing. It's like when Paul said that I've prayed about this thing in me, my body. I've prayed about it thrice, 3 times, and God has not set me free of it. But then He came into a knowledge, a saving knowledge and understanding that grace abounds. He says, but my grace, God told him, but my grace is sufficient. So where am I walking and standing and living in today? I'm living in this place called grace. So I talk and I tell people, I say, yeah, I still have it. And if the lady knew where I come from, because she wasn't there when I couldn't walk. Oh, I went through that. She wasn't there when I didn't have dexterity of movement. She wasn't there when I could not differentiate of or it's not that I couldn't differentiate, it's that I could not uh it's a manipulate, but that's not the word I want to use. But if I had a dime and a quarter and a nickel in my pocket, I couldn't go in there and separate the two to bring one out from the other. There's a word that I'm looking for. I know the word, I just can't think of the word right now. So she wasn't there when I went through all of this. She was not there. So when you say mild, you have to speak from the perspective of what you see right now, but you were not there. You were not in my life years ago when God came in and He healed me. And so now I'm walking in this space of being trusted. God is saying, can I trust you? Can I trust you? And right now, there are things about you that will be healed, and there's other things about you that my grace is sufficient. However, to make of a long story, it's necessary now that I pave this road, and there's so much more that I want to give to you. But I'm doing it because where most of us are at, and what God was talking to me about the healing piece of it, is that the road has to go before you in order for you to be a believer. The road has to be prepared. So most of us now, we talk out of the side of our necks because what people say is, and they say, how do you know? Um, they say, how do you know? And what authority now do you come in? What authority do you come in? And so the authority that I come in is the forerunner that has went before me, that has paved the way for me, and that is the Donnie that is the suffering Donnie. But the Donnie that you see that's in front of you is the Donnie that has been delivered. So there's so many things. I'll get to another part of the Donnie that prepared the way from a poverty standpoint, and that's not, I'm not talking about money per se, but there was a place for me that was impoverished, that I had to be enriched, that I had to become wealthy, and I'll explain that to you one day as well, because that's another road that's in my life that has been paved to bring me to a place of prominence. So there's a place in the Bible, in the the Bible talks about um, Thomas, and I'm getting these calls here, and I'm looking at this. The Bible talks about Thomas, and Thomas represents you. Let me just pause. Let me just pause right here for a second.